Thank you for coming to our faculty-led workshop today with Don McMahon from the College of Education. He is here to talk a little bit about augmented reality, and because he is a humble person, he will not plug this next part, so I will. Everything that you see that he's going to demonstrate here, you can actually rent through his service center and with his lab. So if you're interested in it and want to give it a try in your own area, please feel free to reach out to Don after the faculty-led workshop. So without further ado, well, actually, there's one more ado.
Okay.
When we get to the interactive part, when you're asking questions, please wait for the mic to come around so that the people online can hear you. Okay, now, without further ado, here's Don McMahon.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. And I'm excited to share with you today some things about augmented reality. For the last couple of years, my work has kind of focused on using augmented reality in special education. I'm actually a professor of special education, so my work is focused on using augmented reality with students with disabilities. But just because I have focused on students with disabilities doesn't mean that you can't misuse this same stuff for whatever work that you're doing, because most of the things I'm going to show you today were not designed for students with disabilities. I just kind of found a way to use them with the population that I work with. So we'll see how angry this makes our projector today. But one of the first things I'm going to do is show you one of my absolute favorite augmented reality apps, because I do find that this is one of those things that I can explain it a couple dozen times, but nothing works better than actually just seeing it sometimes. So we'll see how angry this makes our projector today. All right, so this is an app called Aurasma. Hold on, there it goes. Actually, let's try that on here. Sorry. Kind of looks like it's coming on the computer screen. There we go. All right, so that's kind of a quick example of what Aurasma looks like. And it is a completely free Android and iPad app, or iPhone app, or Android phone app that you can use to create your own augmented reality educational experiences. We'll see a video of this in a second, but here's an example of Aurasma. Thank you. A-U-R-A-S-M-A. So I created basically vocabulary words for my students with disabilities that provided their own video definitions. I just made a little short 20 to 30 video. 20 or 30-second video. And obviously, I'm not the world's greatest artist or videographer. But for my students with intellectual disabilities and autism, this gave them a really great tool for learning these relatively hard and challenging science vocabulary terms that they did not know previously. So I have to keep a little picture of this $20 bill because I'm a teacher, or I'm still recovering from being a classroom teacher, and I'm still very poor. So, and I realized many of you might be in the same situation, so I stopped asking the audience, does anyone have a $20 bill, because it just stopped working out for me. All right, so hopefully I knew this projector was going to be angry at me. Give it one more second. There it goes. Well, it thinks it's projecting. Yes, I would like for you to project the computer. Friends? Thank you for your patience while we're working that part out. So you're going to see a slide in a second with the mixed reality continuum. And kind of the easiest way to describe augmented reality is it's a little bit of digital information overlaid on top of the real world. So if you think about it, I'm looking at something, let's say this summer, playing a game called Pokemon Go, like dozens of other kids running all through. Not that I'm a kid anymore, I just turned 40, but I feel like a kid when I'm running around with Pokemon Go. But I see this little critter, this Pokemon, overlaid on top of my street. And now my daughter, who's 4, and I are running around our neighborhood, looking at our street neighborhood, and then seeing all of these really cool digital objects kind of floating and available to us. So hopefully, that's kind of the most immediate and popular example of augmented reality that we have. All right, let's see if we can make this go. I'll try not to unplug it too many more times. Okay, ignore that. All right, so on our mediated reality continuum, one of the things, obviously, we have reality. That's where we all are currently. Augmented reality is that little bit of digital information, like we were just talking about, overlaid on top of the real world. Like that $20 bill making that video pop up. That was a little digital video that popped up. Or that Pokemon running up and down your street. Or any of the other educational examples that we're going to look at. Over here on the other side of things is virtual reality, when we create a completely artificial environment for maybe it's a simulation, maybe it's a 360-degree video. Today's topic isn't on virtual reality, but these two topics kind of get blended together a lot, so I just want to kind of help you out. If you have a hard time telling the difference between them, you can cross the street using augmented reality. Otherwise, everyone who played Pokemon Go would get hit by a car, not just some of them. Whereas when I have on that virtual reality headset and it's completely closing off my view of the world and I'm tethered to a computer, I can't cross the street because I would not see the cars at all and I would get smacked by the car and that would be sad. So there's not a whole lot of mobility with virtual reality because I'm in this little completely artificial environment. I'm not going to walk across the building or down the hall. Whereas with augmented reality, we've seen plenty of examples for years how we can use it and be fairly mobile. Back in the 80s, augmented reality in Top Gun or in a US fighter jet cost millions of dollars to make a little red circle go around that MiG so Maverick could shoot it down in Top Gun. Remember? Now that same type of technology is just built right into your phone. We see it in science fiction all the time. The Terminator's walking down the street. He can look at a motorcycle and go, that is a Yamaha whatever ever, and here's all the information on it. And Minority Report, where we can just grab information and manipulate it. Same type of thing with Iron Man, being able to have our database actually at our fingertips and arrange it in a virtual, like in our actual physical space, just wherever we want. It's a pretty exciting capability that we actually have right now. So to me, this is important because if you think about how revolutionary mobile devices and smartphones have been in our schools and our personal lives, whether you consider it a good disruption or a bad disruption, doesn't really matter, it's happened regardless. We're about to experience the same type of thing with augmented reality and virtual reality, especially in education. These technologies are going to change how we teach in the next 10 years. And we can either adapt and find new ways to use it in the classroom, or we can fall behind. And our students will be either leading the way or not being we're not going to be using the tools that they're going to be expected to use in the workplace. And if you think about how many times you just go to a checkout now that is basically run by some type of mobile device or tablet, having those type of technology skills is incredibly important, especially in our educational practice. And for me, I think it's really important because I'm trying to help my students with disabilities be successful both in their lives outside of the classroom and helping them find employment, helping them live independently. So preparing them for this next step to use this technology that's going to come down the pipe here fairly soon is really important to me. These technologies provide students with disabilities with some incredible educational opportunities. Think about how exciting it is that you can have a vocabulary word that just makes its own definition. I'm not sure what to do at the next step of this assembly process. The next step magically pops up and it tells me what to do. Those are things that are within our grasp right now, which is pretty exciting. The other thing that's important to me, as far as students with disabilities go, my population that I serve is pretty much one of the slowest technology adopters out there. So what we tend to find is a new technology comes along. It first gets used in video gaming and other things, and then slowly works its way into other businesses, and then slowly works its way into general education, and then slowly works its way into special education. I want to try to cut down on that and try to get these cutting-edge emerging technologies connected to our evidence-based practices in special education as quickly as possible. So that's kind of what the mission of our Assistive Technology Research and Development Lab at WSU is. So here's an example of my students using the Aurasma app, and there's how to spell Aurasma, on their iPads to have the definitions pop up. And I've killed off most of the sound here so I can talk over it. But you can see there, phalanges, relatively hard word for somebody who reads at the 3rd grade level. And they look at that word like aorta, and magically the definition pops up in augmented reality on their iPad. And these resources work on 4 or 5-year-old iPads just as well as they work on brand new ones pretty much. It's kind of a low-cost solution to start bringing and making your students familiar with augmented reality. And the great thing for classroom teachers is they can make this a class project. All right, everybody, we have 20 vocabulary words. Each group of 2 is going to take 2 of them, and we're going to make an interactive word wall here for all of these really hard science vocabulary words that we have. And when we're talking about project-based learning and things like that, here's a kind of easy example. Hey, I can get some technology in there. I've got science in there. And I'm learning how to match up a marker and do some kind of relatively basic programming. And programming's kind of a big term for it. Basically, I take a picture and I say, at this time, I'd like for you to play this video when you see this object, which is what's happening here. For each one of these, I can make a picture and a video match up to each other. It takes me about somewhere between 2 to 3 minutes per item, because I've done it a lot now. For your students, the first time they do it, they'll probably take somewhere between like 5 and 8 minutes. And then for adults doing it for the first time, I found that it took me 10 minutes to get it right. And that seems to be about average when I do trainings for educators around the country on augmented reality. It takes a little bit of time. Some other ways that augmented reality will start to become really important for our students with autism. We can do augmented reality emotion recognition right now with some smart glasses. It's pretty expensive, but just like everything else, while this is might cost $3,000 to do it right now, it'll probably be a 99-cent app within 2 years. So we're moving forward. So I'm going to have to make it angry again and switch over to the iPad again, so we'll see how it works, how well it switches back this time. So I wanted to share with you a couple of other examples of augmented reality that are out there that might be a little bit more relevant to some of your particular fields. So For everyone in the sciences, this is NASA's spacecraft. I'm going to go with Curiosity because it's around on Mars right now. Come on, little Curiosity. And so I can grab Curiosity and spin Curiosity around. Now, I don't know what any of these things do because I'm not really in the sciences, but let's see what we can figure out. Make Curiosity a little bit bigger. Let's pull up the mast here. Turn on our antenna. We'll rotate Curiosity around. This is a way that we can take pretty complex 3D model. I'll try not to wiggle too much to give everybody motion sick, sorry. Might have been better if I'd brought a stand. But I can have my students get to see what this rover looks like, explore it individually. One of the things that I find when I bring this into classrooms, it's one thing for me to show it up on the screen, and that's helpful and everyone likes that. But people have a much stronger personal connection with the content when they're holding the device and go, I want to see how the wheels work. And they're exploring it in their own way. That builds a stronger connection. And for a lot of the students that I work with, that initial moment of engagement and being on task, whether they're at the university level or in the K-12 level, is really helpful. That initial hook, hey, this is cool, let's start playing with it, let's start learning. Especially in the K-12 level with my students with disabilities, if my lesson starts pretty strong, the first 5 minutes start off well, the rest of my lesson tends to go a little bit better. So, speaking of that, since our most popular example of augmented reality is from a game, I'm going to share with you a augmented reality game. This one is called AR Basketball. There are a lot of little cute AR games. One of the things that I try to get my teachers to think about is just because something isn't necessarily designed for education doesn't mean that we can't use it. So I am just as good at this game as I am the actual basketball in real life. Oh, wait, that's the first time I've ever made one on camera. 2 in a row. So I usually have some audience member come up and play, but I'm going to keep rolling here for a second. But what I tell teachers to think about, tell me some ways that you could use this in the classroom to make this a little bit more educational. So anybody? I realize you're not all K-12 teachers, but how could I use this in a K-12 setting to make it educational? Anybody? Counting by 2, excellent, great one. Absolutely a great example. Another potential one, think about a 6th grade or 7th grade classroom, or even that introduction to stats class at the university level. All right, class, we're going to play augmented reality basketball for 5 minutes. Your stats class is going to think you're crazy. That's fine. And then we're going to write down all of our scores on the board behind me. And now we're going to work on something called mean, median, and mode. That's the best math lesson I've ever experienced by far. The nuns were not nearly that creative. It was just nothing like that. You could take some of these tools and really do some powerful engagement and make that lesson incredibly memorable for your students. Let's look at a couple of other kind of good cutting-edge examples here. So this one is called 4D Elements. Come on, wake up. Sometimes it helps to close some of these guys out after having so many of them open. Okay, we're going to try it one more time, and then we'll just go on to the next one. But this one takes, if we can, let's see if, please come to life. There we go. So here is magnesium. Magnesium looks like that. Obviously, I'm not a chemistry professor or high school chemistry teacher, but I can take magnesium and oxygen. Oxygen's not really fun to look at. It's pretty boring. But I can take magnesium and oxygen together and make, come on, magnesium oxide. And I can take this little virtual object, well, actually this is a little block, but then I can use augmented reality to turn this into something entirely different. Let's see, platinum. That actually looks like a little actual block of platinum. So another kind of cool example of how there's starting to be a lot of connections to actual science activities and good options for our students to experience augmented reality in the classroom, and a lot of them are much more geared towards K-12 right now, I'll admit. But I can look at an object and get a little bit more information about it and manipulate it. And for some of these things, I might be able to do it in a way that I wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So, try. One of my other favorites that we're seeing a lot of in the augmented reality field is museums sharing their content. This one is called Freedom Stories, and it's from the Harriet Tubman Museum, which is in Canada. If you've ever tried to get a field trip approved in the K-12 world, there's no way you're getting a field trip to Canada approved unless you're already there. It is pretty hard to get a field trip approved these days in a lot of schools. So Canada, very expensive right out. But this museum has taken their entire collection of, well, probably not their entire collection. But these are all stories of people who escaped on the Underground Railroad into Canada. They have the primary source materials that your students could experience. That's a nice way for a museum to do some pretty powerful outreach. For something, the primary source material, maybe it's a ledger of a slave trade, that's going to sit in the back of the museum or in a stand somewhere. And I've been working with teachers to set these up around the classroom, to have these 20 or 25 different stories, and have their students do writing activities, comparing and contrasting some of the different stories. Each one of these little dioramas in augmented reality is kind of like a 2 to 3 minute little vignette, kind of the person. Sometimes they're third person telling about a person. Sometimes they're their diary entries describing their own personal flight to freedom. It's pretty powerful, and it's kind of amazing when you're watching a whole group of students engage in this kind of history and writing activity running around the classroom. Oh, you've got to see this one. One of my favorite things to see is things that look like chaos as students run around a classroom with iPads. And I definitely learned after the first time, we're going to bring headphones because it's going to be a lot better with the headphones. Because when you have 20 kids running around and they're all telling a story, I'm sure you could tell it was kind of awkward with me talking over that one. Just imagine 20 of them. But the second time we did it with headphones was so much better and incredibly effective. So that's one of those things I think it's fun to think about. I'm not actually going to try to do any origami today because that would also be kind of disappointing and it's also kind of time consuming. But the other thing that we're seeing a lot is publishers are using things like this to have a book and a companion app in augmented reality so the students can look at the book using an app on their phone or tablet and get additional information on something. There are plenty of these about the solar system where they can open up the book, they get this great little view of the solar system, but it's even cooler when that book triggers that amazing event of, oh my gosh, look, the solar system's here, and I can fast forward it 2 years, or I can slow it down, or I can see what the planets look like at a certain date. And we're seeing a lot of those. This one does origami, and again, I'm not good at that. Everything that we've seen so far has required some type of little physical marker, whether it was these blocks or the kind of low-tech femur trigger that I made here to have something pop up. But augmented reality doesn't necessarily require that. I'm sure that many of you have an app on your phone called Yelp. And so let's see what's nearby us. So this is not requiring any type of trigger. This is on the Yelp app that might be on your phone right now. If you just look down there at the bottom, it says Monocle. That's what they're calling this feature. And if I want to go to Golden Teriyaki, apparently it is that way. It does a little bit better on your actual cell phones, by the way, because it has GPS, and that helps it do a little bit better. But it does pretty good on here. Let's see, Cougar Country Drive-In, I would say that it's generally that direction. We've used apps like this with my students with intellectual and developmental disabilities to help them navigate in the community independently. You probably know an adult, it might even be you, who struggles to use a paper map or struggles to even use the Google map of I'm the blue dot trying to get to the red dot. We had lots of students with disabilities who were their strategy for navigating from the blue dot to the red dot was trial and error. I'm getting further away from the red dot. I now need to go the other way. Well, because figuring out where you are in this three-dimensional world when using a two-dimensional object is hard for some individuals, especially people with a disability. This is fairly intuitive. I know Cougar Country Drive-In is over there. It's not over there. If I want to go to South Fork, which would be fun, by the way, it is over there. That's been very helpful. And so our students with intellectual and developmental disabilities were able to navigate their community much more successfully, and we have kind of a nice line of publications of about 4 evidence-based articles kind of laying down the foundation that AR is a powerful tool for helping individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and autism navigate their communities. So, all right, I'm going to switch back to the computer and probably make it angry again. So everything I've shown you so far, that was an example of augmented reality. Let's see if it's going to work. I'm feeling lucky. Nope. Oh, maybe. No. So everything I've shown you so far, I think it'll just cycle through and keep being angry for a second. Come on. On the plus side, I think that's the last time I need to switch today. Almost. All right, I'll let them try to fix that for a second. So everything that you just saw had to use a marker, except for the Yelp app, which used GPS information to figure out what was happening, or that kind of combination of all the sensors that are in the iPad or smartphone. What we're going to see in the near future are a lot more things like this. This is an app called Layer, and when I was at Pearl Harbor, I was able to use Layer and a little tool called Wiki Loves Monuments to find out about information around me. I could look over there. I don't know the name of that battleship. I could look at it and see that is the USS Missouri. If I wanted to find out more about the USS Missouri, I click on that and it takes me to an information page about the USS Missouri. While this is kind of limited, or I guess when I used it 3 years ago, it was kind of limited, imagine here in the next couple of years as that type of information is going to be available to us on a lot of different platforms. Whether it's smartphones, tablets, or smart glasses, things like this are going to become very common. We're going to have basically internet browsers available to us for things that are nearby. I am curious about this leaf. There are apps out there right now where I can click on that leaf and get more information about it. So one of the things that I'm excited about, I've done for 4 years, I've been working on augmented reality on mobile devices, and now it's becoming possible to use it on smart glasses. This is the Microsoft HoloLens. It is not the most fashionable piece of eyewear right this second, okay? But it is a full Windows 10 computer on my head. So, there's a lot of computing power in here. And again, not the most fashionable thing out there. But what I do like about it is it can do some pretty cool things. I'm going to show you a couple of the out-of-the-box examples that are available right now. And it's really very ripe for new programming to happen because there's a whole huge, incredible need for content. So one of the things that I've started to notice is, or started to think about it, this is kind of like a car phone in 1993. This is the first generation of it. Instead of it taking 20 years, though, for us to go from car phone to iPhone, it's going to go a lot faster. The second generation of these devices are supposed to hit this summer, and instead of costing $3,000 like this device, they're projected to be more in the range of $500 to $600, which is a huge improvement. So let's take a look at some ways that we might be able to use this in education.
This is an example of how we can use augmented reality to support literacy and helping students learn to read. So what we frequently do as teachers and parents sometimes of students who are learning to read is we'll take common objects and label them with words. You see this pretty frequently in kindergarten and first grade classrooms where chair will be labeled with chair, table will be labeled table, and door will be labeled door. So right now, all I've done is taken a selection of letters and spelled out the word door over here so that anyone who's wearing the HoloLens, when they come to this spot in the room, they're going to see that this is labeled door. And you can do that pretty easily. And imagine it's only going to get easier as time goes on and more of apps are available for the Microsoft HoloLens and other smart glasses, but I can spell out the word door and label this object here. You can do the same thing for this chair here or computers. I've labeled the lab here, lab. We've got WSU over there for our university where we're doing some of this work. And you can see here we've got lots of other little digital objects around our classroom. So, just wanted you to see how we could start using augmented reality to support reading instruction. One of the things that we wonder sometimes is, wow, this is a neat technology. What is it going to look like in the classroom? And this is just one of many potential ways that we could start using this in the classroom. And while smart glasses like the Microsoft HoloLens aren't very common yet, there are also lots of ways that we can use augmented reality on mobile devices like iPads and Android devices to support reading instruction for our students.
So another kind of fun example of the Microsoft HoloLens potentially being helpful for my students with autism. We tend to use a lot of sensory supports for our students with autism. And here's a little sensory room where actually it's still my lab obviously, but I've turned it into this little virtual sensory room by putting virtual aquarium objects all over the room. And I can walk around this space and watch the little clownfish do their thing and walk around these objects. And that's possible for a lot of these potential educational applications. The next one I'm going to show you is also filmed from the Microsoft HoloLens, just like the previous video, except this time it is trying to create a little bit more of a more complex mixed reality experience of a dinosaur tour. I probably won't play the whole video, but one of the things I want you to look for as it's playing is you can see a little bit of the background of my lab in there, and that's what that user sees. It's a mix between kind of a full VR experience and without the danger of tripping over a desk, basically. Oh, the sound was actually going through here earlier.
This is Titanosaurus, the largest known dinosaur or land species to ever exist. Titanosaurus are estimated to have grown up to 65 feet, as tall as a 5-story building. Just imagine. His length could reach 130 feet, and his maximum weight is estimated at almost 140,000 pounds, the weight of 10 African elephants.
So you can kind of see there, you can see the kind of lights up through the lab there, but I've got this complete VR experience in my little field of view, but my peripheral vision, which you can't actually see what I'm seeing, but when I was actually filming this, I could see, hey, there's a chair here, I need to not trip over it, as a little bit of a more of a practical experience, I think, in an educational setting. I can walk underneath this giant dinosaur that's slowly marauding towards me. I don't care that he's a plant eater. He's still big enough to crush me in this. Yeah, it was awkward. I mean, seemed very big.
And his size and length of his neck helped him to reach fresh leaves from the tops of trees. Such an enormous creature needed a lot of food every day.
Now think about a classroom teacher taking his or her class on a dinosaur safari, basically. They all could have this shared experience in AR smart glasses and have some type of animal tower over them or walk through their classroom. And they can all go, hey, I'm interested in this, and engage in this material.
His legs pointed straight down from the pelvis. This posture makes dinosaurs different from other reptiles, like crocodiles or alligators. Oh, do you hear that? Tap on the pond to find out what
You can
it is
kind of
like.
see I have a marker board right behind the alligator there. That's still weird. And here's one that's a little, this one's a little bit more of a clear AR experience. And this will be our last one that we probably end with. And we'll have some questions.
Bradycardia is, per definition, below 60. And tachycardia.
Again, imagine them, students in our medical school getting to see a big interactive heart and have someone who actually knows something about a heart more than I do describing, hey, this is the left ventricle. This is what scar tissue looks like. If you go to condition 2 on here, which we may not have time to actually do, it shows you what it looks like when a heart attack happens and what the damaged heart muscle looks like.
Stop rotation.
And so I can give it cues to do certain things. And with several of these, again, it's very possible for one teacher to interact with it and then all of the students to potentially be seeing whatever type of educational model is being shown there. And a great opportunity to take something that's, whether it's really small or hard to see or something that you may not generally get access to, and have these incredible simulations play out in a very interactive and engaging way. Yeah, that's just unhappy.
Is the irreversible death of heart muscle tissue.
All right, So we'll save a couple minutes for questions if there are any. So what we're trying to do is, in my assistive technology research and development lab, is take augmented reality tools like some of the iPad apps that I've shown you, or the AR smart glasses, and some of the virtual reality tools, which I didn't get into today at all, like the HTC Vive, and work together to find ways to use them in education and to provide resources to the broader WSU community. Dr. Jonah Firestone on the Tri-Cities campus has a similar lab looking at AR and VR tools, kind of a little more geared towards science education, but we partner up and find ways to use these tools in education, because there are really not a whole lot of educational research being done on them just yet. It's kind of a fun time to be in the field, and a lot of the initial applications are geared towards gaming and business applications. And so in educational research, we still have a lot of, as I try to pitch to my doc students all the time, aim for the low-hanging fruit that's out there. And I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit here in this field. So if you have any, I guess I'll just turn it off over to questions if there are any. All right. I guess we have to wait for the mic.
Okay, so just to understand, so like the last example with the heart up there, and you said like, imagine a medical classroom. So we were seeing it on the screen because it was on
Because I recorded it from the glasses earlier today.
In a class situation, would each student have to have
Some
a
type of
device of
glasses.
sort?
Yep, some type of glasses available to them. Some type of augmented reality glasses.
Okay,
Potentially, this or some other, hopefully, lower cost, more fashionable hardware.
okay. In the absence of glasses, if everyone had a tablet, would it work?
Yeah, potentially. There are options out there where you can have a augmented reality app work like that. It gets a little bit more complicated, I think, with that marker sometimes, but yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm also excited about lunch, so, we don't have to go terribly long.
All right. So
Did anybody see something today that they hadn't seen before? My only hope is, for doing some of these, that you might be inspired to use one of these tools in a new way. Or the other thing that I hope is that you look at this and go, man, that would be really cool if it did X. And then you take that idea and we work on X together and maybe turn it into an app. One of the things I'd love to see is some type of way of using this with some type of smart glasses so you could tell how long I was looking at a word, and if I was looking at, let's say, one of these hard vocabulary words for longer than 3 seconds, that a definition would pop up. That would help a lot of my students. I found a way to do it on an iPad that I showed you earlier, but I think if we can migrate that capability into the smart glasses, that could be pretty powerful for a lot of our struggling readers, because after working with a lot of struggling readers over the years, one of the things I found, and I think all of you know, is if you're struggling to decode a word, like teaching about volcanoes, pyroclastic cloud, and I'm sitting there trying to sound out pyroclastic, by the time I get to the end of that word, my reading comprehension on what the question was is completely out. It's faded away. So if I can help somebody get to that hard word and get them more focused on the content, now that I don't want them to eventually be able to say pyroclastic cloud, but I also want them to be able to answer the question in that science test, I think there are a lot of potential to use some of these tools. And I think one of the things that we're going to see happen a lot more in the next couple of years is that line between augmented reality and something kind of clunky like this, and something a little less invasive like a full-time pair of sunglasses that you wear that provides you just a little bit of a digital prompt here and there to help you out at the right time or right place, is going to become pretty common. And I think it's important that we teach our students to use these technologies appropriately and hopefully find, for my work with students with disabilities, to find ways that they can use these tools to kind of empower them and find ways that they can help them live independently and be successful in the community. So unless there are any other questions, I'll let everybody go have lunch. Thank you for listening. And if you have any other questions, email me, please.
All right. Thank you, Don, for your presentation. I hope I see you all at our next faculty-led workshop later in the month, and feel free to grab more sandwiches on your way out. So have a great day.
Thanks.